Hello, and welcome to my newest series, Collective Behavior and Social Movements. I'm Dr. Brian Remy Cross with Silvertree Consulting, and I will be talking to you today about collective behavior and social movements, that is, protest movements. So let's start off by why you might be willing to listen to what I have to say about this. I have a doctorate in sociology with an emphasis in social change and social movements. My dissertation was on grassroots activism and when movements decide to employ violence on behalf of their political aims. I have more than 20 years of experience as a social movement scholar, and I have more than 25 years of experience as an activist. Additionally, I have attended or organized close to 100 protests, actions, and demonstrations. So I have both academic and practical applied experience here. Couple of questions. I spoke about this to a few people, letting them know I was considering doing it, and I got some questions such as, is this woke or DEI or social justice crap? Yep. Absolutely. In fact, social movements are the quintessential example of social justice. They are the vehicle by which it is often achieved. Uh, is this then going to indoctrinate me? Hasn't so far. I taught this course for about 10 years. And let me tell you, if I got the students to listen enough to read the syllabus, it was a victory. No one was getting indoctrinated. And also, that's not what professors do. If you have a question for me, cool. Excellent. I love it. You can email me at brcross, that is BRCROSS at silvertreeconsultancy.net. I will post that and say it again at the end. So if you do have questions, I would love to hear from you. So let's talk about collective action and social movements, or collective action versus social movements. I, as well as a lot of other scholars, often use these terms interchangeably, but there is a debate over them. And usually, what we see is that social movements are often seen as a type of collective action, and that not all incidences of collective action are movements. However, most movements you would say are collective action, right? So if these are nested concepts with social movements being a type of collective action. For example, if you've ever been to a large sporting event, you may have done the wave. This is an example of collective action or collective behavior that is not a social movement. We'll see why as the series progresses, but really what it often comes down to is whether and what type of change the collective action is trying to get and what the targets of that change are. So, when we talk about collective behavior, there are a variety of different social behaviors that fall under this umbrella that are often related to or in some ways illustrative for our understanding of social movements as a type of collective behavior. So things like riots, rebellions, and revolutions, crowd panics, fan behavior or fads, moral panics, social movements themselves, insurgencies, and terrorism would all consider to be examples of collective behavior. However, not all of them are social movement behavior. So if we look at these behaviors like rebellions, insurgencies, social justice movements are unabashedly social movements. They are, and we'll get to the definition here at the end of today, but they are sort of quintessential examples of this. You also have collective behaviors like terrorism or revolutions that are sometimes social movements, depending on sort of the mechanism and the participants. And then you have things that are collective behavior, but not movements. A riot on its own, a freestanding riot, like a sports riot, not a social movement. Riots can be part of sort of broader movement things, but considered sort of individually on their own, riots are not social movements. Again, revolutions and terrorism are sometimes examples here, depending on a variety of factors. And then things like crowd panics, fan behavior, and moral panics are usually not considered social movements due to the fact that they often lack a desire to enact social change. Moral panics can become social movements, and we'll cover a couple of those as the series moves forward. And for those of you who may not know, moral panics are things like the belief in the 1980s that heavy metal music was turning kids to Satanism. The classic example is the Salem witch trials. Um, More recently, we've seen moral panics around things like trans athletes and just the rights of trans folk overall to be recognized and given legal protections, where there's a sort of a moral panic pushback to that. Um, so again, that can become a movement, but generally it's not where it starts. All right. So we have sort of these what is and is not. We're starting to see the outline of what a social protest movement is. And what I like to use is my favorite definition, the one that I would always have students use to identify a movement and sort of classify it, is one that's offered by David Snow and Sarah Sewell. Um, Full disclosure, David Snow was my dissertation advisor, so obviously I'm a bit biased here with his definition. But what Snow and Sewell said is that a social movement should have five key elements that you can focus in on. First, it should challenge or defend an existing social structure or system of authority, right? So there is something out there that is setting rules or structuring folks' lives, and movements are going to either seek to challenge or defend that. For example, right now we are seeing competing movement and counter movement behaviors around many of the functions of government, right? Government is an existing social structure and a system of authority. And we are seeing attempts to both challenge and defend various governmental institutions. Second, social movements are collective, not individual. You cannot be a social movement of one. You're not a social movement, you're somebody with an idea. Collective means they are multiple people sharing that ideal, sharing that belief, and working collectively towards it. Third, this one gets a little iffy. Social movements act outside of existing institutional and organizational structures. Now, what is meant by that is that generally it's not the people inside the organization, it's not the people inside the institution that are pushing for the change or defending against the change. It is outside actors. It is people who may be affected but are not sort of the decision makers. Part of the reason for this is generally organizations like corporations have mechanisms for listening to their constituents, for the people that are part of them, and making change according to that. Social movements generally are attempts outside of the normal channels, right? So voting is not a social movement because there is a structure, an institutional structure of change in this country that says go and vote. However, using a court to challenge something could very well be a social movement. So they act outside. Fourth one here is that they are organized to some degree. This may seem like a no duh, but it means that a bunch of people who are upset about, let's say, the price of eggs, for example, which, you know, maybe a couple of people who are watching this right now may have some strong feelings about it, right? You may meet the prior criteria with your belief about the price of eggs, where you are challenging an existing social structure or system of authority that is setting prices. It may be collectively there's a bunch of people pissed off about eggs and who don't feel that they have an institutional avenue for that and are going to protest outside of that. But unless they are organized, it's just a bunch of people angry about the price of eggs. And it doesn't really go any further than that, right? So there has to be a sort of an organization binding the collective together towards that goal. Finally, the last element that Snow and Sewell put out here is that social movements have continuity. That is, they're not a flash in the pan. They exist over time, generally for extended periods of time, and they change, evolve, and challenge over that period of time, right? This is one of the reasons why a riot is not considered a social movement. A riot is a one-off. It may be related to a movement that has continuity, but a riot on its own is generally not seen as social movement in and of itself. All right. So I don't want to go on for too long today. So thank you for watching or listening. If you do have questions, comments, or feedback, feel free to contact me. Again, my email is brcross, CROSS, at silver, spelled like the metal, tree, spelled like the plant, consultancy, consultancy.net. I didn't get the .com. And as a reminder, I am the owner and founder of Silvertree Consulting. We offer a variety of services, including strategic consulting for social movements and activist organizations. So if you are a part of an organization that is looking to level up your game, or you are considering founding one of these things, drop me a line, and I'd be more than happy to talk about things like marketing or media strategy, recruitment strategy, continuity planning, all these sorts of things. So, or you could just watch this video and audio series, and maybe that'll help you out. So until next time, be well, and go out there and change the world.